What's up, everyone? Joe Carroll here. Thanks so much for joining in. I'm excited to do this with you guys. I'm excited. Thank you for everyone that's joining in. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun, and I hope you guys do too. So, what I want to do is I have a song that I recorded in Austin, Texas at the Warm Audio Studios last June, I believe it was, June of 23. I think it was anyway. A great band named Glass Bandit. And thank you to them for letting us record them, use their material for tutorials, and all of that good stuff. A great band. And this is an in your face, straight up 70s, early 80s instrumental, horn based funk song. I mean, we're going to have a good time today. We're going to have a good time today. So, what I wanted to do is I've got the multi tracks loaded up here, and I'm going to let you kind of see the recording levels and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to hit the Pro Tools command that lets you see how hot things are going to tape, or went to tape rather. You can see how much compression was applied here and there. You can see the snare drum top. You know, we were getting some 1176 compression to tape, as well as on the 1176 on the bottom. You can see it's pretty consistent on the bottom snare mic. The overheads, that's the dynamic range we're looking at, and that's just the transformers of the and the tubes of the pre's and the microphones we were using doing a great job of natural compression. And the room mics, as you can see, were compressed pretty heavily. But there's the, let's see, there's the bass guitar. We had some LA2A on that. But that's, I just kind of want you guys to see the levels that's printing to tape. Because I think about that stuff. Honestly, I do. It's important to me that everything is printed to tape in a good spot for Pro Tools. And the first thing I do is I have a template that comes up, and you'll see it's full of stuff, but nothing is active, right? So if I click on any given track, you'll see the gains and everything are completely off. The only thing that may be going is a high pass filter that I know is going to be there on that type of an item, and that'd be it. No compression. I do predetermine little things like, let's say, the overheads right here. Um, I don't have a preset for this yet on this 4KE, but what I would, on the overheads or the rooms, I'm going to go ahead and have the fast attack turned on as part of my template. So I need to do that now that I've got the 4KE from SSL. In fact, let's talk about SSL. I kind of am going to approach this very SSL heavy, which I usually do anyway. You'll see all the beautiful control surfaces in front of me, and I just love that sound. But what I like to do is change various console types here and there across the mix for differences. Like on the drums, I'm going to go channel strip 2. Think of the 9000 console, a big bottom end, full open top end, fast, very fast, punchy channel strip compressor. Whereas the 4KE, is softer on the top, lighter on the bottom, mid forward and aggressive. It has a grunge that the 9000 doesn't have. And then we also have the 4KB here. And what's cool about it is that it's the darkest of all of them. So I typically use it on darker sources that I don't want quite as much high frequency. But it's also got a channel strip compressor that's more accustomed to what we're used to on the VCA bus compressor. So it's a very cool option. This is not meant to be an SSL commercial. I just love their products, so that's going to be my starting spot. One thing I want to show you is that as part of my template, I'm coming in with some compression and saturation on the buses already. This is my vocal bus, which we are not going to need because this song has no vocals. Delete. So this is going to be the drums and bass. You can steal these settings. This is an SSL X saturator, which I'm currently really fond of. That is the guitars, keyboards, and in this song, brass. So I'm going to do some saturation, some compression across the drum group, and the other, all other elements. And then I'm going to do some EQing across those as well. And I have different choices. I have in my template, and you'll see I have things grayed out here that, like right here, if I don't want to use that Millennia, I'll switch to this guy right here, for example. on the guitars, and I've got other choices as well, but they're sitting there made inactive that I can just quickly pull up. Okay. And then those funnel into the stereo bus, which also right out of the gate has a touch of saturation from SSL's Fusion. Yes, I love SSL. I just do. I have a Fusion here, and the thing about a Fusion is you use a Fusion, and then you always want to use a Fusion. It's it just like once you use it, you can't unhear it. And I'm generally already hitting my stereo bus compressor because I kind of want to see from the beginning as I gain stage my mix that I'm in sweet spots. And there's a reason for that. I'm using a lot of plugins that are based on uh, analog gear. So that are calibrated. Some of them have calibration modes, and you can choose different things. And I'm at minus 18, which happens to be analog zero. And the reason my Pro Tools is calibrated to minus 18, the reason that all my plugins that are analog based are calibrated to minus 18 is because that's consistent with analog zero. If I decide I'm going to do an all in the box mix today for the sake of time, but if I decide to patch any of this yummy stuff here in, it's already an analog sweet spot. So if I'm like, this isn't working, I'm going to go into my SSL bus plus compressor. It's already in a great spot for analog. All I have to do is patch it in, and I'm just starting to work. I don't have to like rethink my gain staging. Okay, so let me play the track a little bit, and you'll see that these are kind of already, there's some levels already set as far as volumes. Of course, the master fader's at zero, but the others are down a little bit because as they combine to hit the stereo bus, I want the stereo bus to be in a sweet spot. All right, so what I want to do is remember that everything is raw except for some of this stuff that we just talked about. A little EQ, a little compression is and some saturation is already in effect. Just like if I was mixing on an analog console, the effect of the how hard I'm hitting the stereo bus, I'm hearing that from the beginning. I'm hearing the line input of the console having an effect on the sound. That's what I want. I want it right from the beginning. Okay, so let's just take a listen. I have everything panned, nothing panned yet. If it's mono, it's in mono. If it's stereo, it's in stereo. The mix is very, very rough. But that's the way I wanted to start for your benefit, so you can kind of see what I just do on the average day. So here we go. Oh, let's go to marker number one. Let's see. I want to hear those guitar mics. And it's got to find a place where he's playing. Here we go. Okay, that's the ribbon mic. I'm gonna mute that for now, and I'm just gonna use the 57 on the guitar solo and the rhythm section, and just bring in the ribbon if we need it for girth. Okay. Let's take a minute to. I'm going to go ahead and get some panning things figured out on the brass, and I'm going to go ahead and do a little clip gain as well, just to make my compressors work less. I don't want to be pushing them really hard in some ways. I like to use clip gain in the beginning to make my target, my source a little more subdued and let's just call it normalized, and so my compressors can stay in a sweet spot without being really audibly grabby at times and not even hardly touching the signal at others. So let's just do this. And again, I didn't want to do this in advance because I wanted you guys to see the process. That's why you're here. Okay, so that's going to be a nice source for the compressor. Let's take this trumpet, and boost it just a little bit. Let's see without any processing or plugins on the direct mics. Let's just kind of see how loud they're printed. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to reconsolidate that. Wait, actually, before I reconsolidate it, let's do this. I know there's no low frequency things that I want in the brass, so I'm going to use Fab Filter. I've got a little preset here. Let's just cut everything below like 90 cycles out. There's nothing there we want. So we're taking care of our reconsolidating at the same time as we're getting rid of some low end stuff that we do not want. Okay, so that said, let's check those spots one more time. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to trim these just a little bit because they're a little hotter than I would like to hit an analog model compressor. So I'm going to trim them just a little bit, okay? And we're only going to hear the close mics of the brass for the moment because I don't know how much of the room I want to use. In some forms of music, the room, the decatry is everything for brass. Think Broadway, think big band jazz. But that's not what this is. The room would muddy it up. So we're just going to use a touch of it if necessary, and we may not use any of it. So right now we're going to start with just direct mics. So I've got that reconsolidated. Let's see, how loud is this bass right here? That looks a little loud. Okay, we're using all the Pro Tools headroom practically. So let's bring that down a little bit. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and hit delete because I want to name everything clean names. So later, as I archive these files and turn them into labels and various things, that there's no question, this is the bass guitar. This is the Tom 1. I don't want -01, -MPT, or what, all these little suffixes and things that get added to our file names. I don't want to turn that into a label. We're not supposed to. Most of us do nowadays. We've gotten really lazy. I don't want that for myself or my clients. So, and I can see there's a tom hit or two right here that's substantially louder than the others. Our buddy Donovan on drums got a little happy, and that's awesome. I remember I was really trying to inspire him to get uncomfortable and aggressive, and he did a great job. He's a great drummer, great band. Look these guys up. Glass Bandit. I believe it's Bandit singular, not bandits. But other than that, man, I'm pretty happy to get started. So let's listen right here one more time. Just make sure we're happy with our levels and our panning. To me, I did a video on this recently, or an Instagram reel. The first 5 minutes of a mix, I know this song. I recorded this song, so it's a little different than on the average mix day where I'm getting something that I'm hearing for the first time. But still, I feel like my instinctual panning and volume decisions and stereo bus level, a lot of that translates all the way to the end of the day. So it's very important that I get it right. So let's check it out. Okay. So these top two, let's put the saxes together and the trumpets together. Let's do that. Okay, that's the higher octave. Okay. So let's try. In some forms of music, there's rules. Hey, trumpets are over here, trombones are right here, saxophones are right here. And there's other forms where it's trumpets over here, trombones over here when there's no saxes. This really isn't that. What we're going to do here, there's no vocals to fit around. So the brass in big sections of the song is the star, that they're carrying the melody. So we don't really have to worry as much about where they're panned as long as it sounds great. And really, the only element we have to fit it around is one mono guitar, electric guitar pass. So, we have a big stage to use here as far as our stereo width, and we don't really, there's no rules in this song, so we're gonna just see what feels good. And that sounds like a doubled trumpet part. Okay, that's the high one. So let's start with them wide and the lower trumpet 2 and saxophone 2. Let's pan them in the middle a little bit, more towards the middle, and see what it sounds like. No, that's a bad call. We want the high stuff. With the high stuff a little more in the middle because that's the melody as opposed to the harmony. So we're going to take. Okay, so I'm going to write high just so I don't forget. I'm going to write high on the high stuff and low on the low stuff because as I'm doing my automation, and I think I'm going to put the high guys to the left. It just works for me mentally. Let's see what that does. Okay, let's check our levels here because I'm already hitting some compression and some EQ. This is just here as a safety. Usually once I get all my guys in, I put this in a spot to where it's just trimming a little bit here and there just to make sure that there's not crazy spikes going to the stereo bus that's making the stereo bus react to where it's ducking vocals and all the other instruments, just because the drums are causing a momentary spike that should be handled prior to the stereo bus, if that makes any sense. Okay, that's a pretty sweet spot for the drum fader at the moment. Because it's going to get louder because I may add some samples. So you'll see what I'm trying to accomplish on this processor right here. This is an amazing drum processor. Is I'm trying to get about 1 dB of compression. I'm not trying to mix with meters. That's not the thing. I'm trying to mix by ears. But I know on this piece much more than that, and I can hear the compression in a negative way. But that seems to be a sweet spot for the most attack versus sustained benefits, if that makes sense. So I know I'm going to be pushing a little more volume into it once I get a sample in there, if I get a sample, or I add some nice smack and attack with parallel compression on the snare drum. I'm going to be getting more and more level. So right now it's only about a half dB, and that's fine. Okay, now let's take a look at all the other instruments. And the difference here between the normal day and today is that, again, I'm trying to keep it in an analog sweet spot. However, we don't have a lead vocal. Our melody, which is the trumpets for most, for most of the song, or the brass, we'll just call it, is in this fader too. So I may be pushing a little more level than I'm used to. In which case, I have an option of trimming it here, or at the downwind, I can put just a little less level to this group. But let's see where we're hitting it right now. It's a pretty sweet spot. So when it's spiking, yes, that's pretty hot for analog, but that's momentary spikes. Our averages are going to be lower. See, all of a sudden, we're at -16, -15, which is a few dB above analog 0, which is a really comfortable spot for me. I like to push past 0 ultimately because I get more benefit of the analog circuit. Okay, so we're in a pretty sweet spot. Actually, that lead guitar is turned up. All right, and our stereo bus, it looks like our averages are around -20 or so. See that? We're kind of hovering around -20, -19. That's a great spot, in which case this pre-calibrated compressor is probably doing very, very little. That's actually what I want to see right now, like 1 dB of compression. And a lot of times I will turn the bus comp off at this point. It just different days, I just feel different ways. But the goal is, or the point I'm trying to make, is that I am mixing into the saturation and the compression and a little bit of EQ from the beginning, because I'm looking for that thing. I'm looking for the sound of this unit on drums and bass. I'm looking for the sound of this unit or one of these others on that subgroup before it hits the stereo master. The reason is various EQ circuits sound different. So before it reaches the stereo master and I'm just using one type of EQ sound, I'm using less of that EQ sound at that stage, just a little extra finishing polish, and I'm using more downstream that sounds different. So I'm naturally getting more separation between different elements before it reaches the stereo bus, and I'm not relying on the sound of one compressor to give me all of my presence. I hope that makes sense. So my guitars and my drums and my vocals and all these various things have a different type of presence from these different processors that's creating separation and depth within the mix, instead of just using one EQ later on to say just jack up like 6 dB of top end or something. So I'm getting more depth and more natural separation by doing it this way. I hope that makes sense. Okay, that said, let's start dialing in. Now, I think what I want to do, I'm going to mute the brass for now, because they're kind of the star. And that's often what I do. I'm going to build the foundation of the rhythm section. Now that I know what the star is, I'm going to mute it, and I'm going to build a solid bed for the star to live on. So let's just check it out from about here and in the song, and just start working. Okay, these drums are very roomy. One thing I remember about the room at Warm Audio, very large and lively. So even the overheads have quite a bit of room in it. So we may not use a lot of reverb. We may not use a lot of room mics, because there's room built into even our overheads. Hear that? Now watch, I'm going to mute the overhead. That's how roomy the overheads are. Sounds like it has reverb on it. Isn't that crazy? That is wild. But anyway, so because of that, we're probably gonna, again, every song is different. We don't just do a thing. We do what's right for that song. So there is no like, well, I always use this much reverb on the snare. Nah, that's wrong. That's just not a good way of thinking. Let's get this kick sounding great. I think what I want to do is I want to hit it with 2 circuits. I kind of want to do that old school thing where we have an 1073 or something Neve giving us a little girth prior to our SSL thing. And a lot of times I'll do that on kick or snare or toms, and that's about it really. But sometimes I do it on piano, real thin sounding pianos and things like that. Let's get busy. So let's drive a little preamp gain into it. You hear that extra? I mean, that's just a great trick. And this 1073 from Kit, the preamp section of it is just really good at that kind of thing. It's really good. Let's see what the beater snap, the air sounds like at the top on the Neve circuit. I'm not going to use the bottom end of the Neve. I'm going to use the bottom end of the SSL. Now let's start dialing in the SSL, and I have the ability to do that hands-on, so why not? High pass filter set to 30. Low pass filter looks like I've got it defaulted in my template to around 15K. There's no magic number on that. I just just keep some of that extra sizzle in the top band, top octave, or half octave in this case, from reaching the listener. There's nothing in there that I want. I don't know if I'm even going to use compression. Let's see, but let's check out the inside mic. And what I wanted, a lot of times, what I do, just in case there's any inaccuracies in sample delay reporting within the plugin, a lot of times on my kicks and snares, I like to use the same amount of inserts and just to make sure everything's nice and tidy. So, but I'm not going to do anything other than maybe the preamp gain. I'm not even going to use the preamp gain, so we'll just leave it there just to make sure that everything's nice and tidy sample-wise. Let's roll off all the top end. Let's see if this sounds good as only a sub-bass thing. Hear that? And so the phasing is good. It got way worse there. All right. Let's hear that in the context. Well, it's a good start. Probably going to do some more treatment to it, but let's hear the snare. I don't know if I'm going to do the Neve trick on this. Let's dial in just the SSL and see what that sounds like. Let's dial in the noise gate because there's a lot of hi-hat bleed. I'm not sure why. Maybe I didn't have the mic pointed in the perfect spot. Get rid of a little of it there. I'm not going to use any compression whatsoever. Let's see if there's anything. I'm going to reduce that just a touch. Let's bring in a little compression post EQ on the bottom mic. That may be too bright, but let's check it out in context. Threshold was set too high. Some of them were not getting through. Okay, let's bring in our overheads. Now, just because that's what ties everything together, I need to hear the kick and the snare and the overheads. And I have two options here. We have, I think, one of them was 84. It's not in the notes. I think it got cleared. One of them was 84s, and one of them was their reissue of the C12. I think they call it the CX12, I believe. And here's the 12s. Okay, the 12s are the way to go for this song for me. What I want to do is I'm going to bring in a little. I think it's called Phoenix. Let's use a little tape saturation, just a little bit. Let's go to luster. There we go. A little bit of process here. And I'm not sure if I want this, but I want to hear it. Definitely want to hear it before I make any decisions. This saturation tool, let's see what it does. Sometimes it's magic. It's pushing the snare back quite a bit, which a lot of times is very very helpful. But I don't feel like I'm needing that on this song. So let's just dial in this. Let's use some fast attack compression, just because I love what that does. It has an urgency and just meanness to it on drum overheads that I love so much. I'm going to hear that. I feel like I may need, surprisingly, a little upper mid that I usually don't need in a snare drum, but I feel like I may. Just barely, just a tiny bit of it. All right, very cool. Let's put the hi-hat in with it. What we're going to do is we're going to check the phase of the hi-hat. Just make sure I recorded everything right. Check the phase of the hi-hat with the overheads. And, sometimes it's sample reporting in plugins. You just always got to, even when you know you recorded it right, once you get your plugins going or inserts going, it's really good to check. See that really thinned out. Now that can be a fun trick if you want it thinned out, but I'm looking to keep it in phase. So let's see how this sounds. A lot of times what I'd like to do is, because of the proximity of a snare drum to a hi-hat, there's gonna be bleed. So sometimes with fast attack on an SSL, you can use just a little of that with a super fast release to push the snare back during its hits in the hi-hat track. If we need to. We may not need to. Let's check. Don't really need to on this one, so we're not even going to bother with it. So we know it's in phase. Let's get the snare drums and the kicks and the overheads in. See what it sounds like. Can't believe how roomy it sounds already, but that's our starting spot. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to use. Let's Let's check out the rooms. Let's never say never. Let's just know what we're dealing with. Man, that is a good sound of room they have down there. That one's further away, bombastic. Well, that's my little groove enhancer mic. We may or may not use that. Here's the loft. Okay. Wow. All right. So what we're going to do, if we're going to use a room mic, it's going to be this one. So what I want to do, I'm going to bring the crotch mic, we call it. up here closer. I want to make these two inactive and hide them. I don't want those guys. I know I'm not going to use them. Overhead, this overhead, I'm not going to use it. Let's just get it out of our view. Just keep our real estate on the screen good. So now let's just check everything in the mix. Okay, it's getting better. It's getting better. We still have a long way to go, but it's getting better. Let's go ahead and dive into the tom-toms. Where's some great spots to check them? Let's just put this on loop right here and check tom 1. Now, I want to hear tom number 2 as well before I make a decision on saturation and or, just some kind of a girth enhancement kind of thing. Okay. I don't think I'm going to use the Neve preamp. Yeah, you know what? Let's just hear it. Let's hear the Neve preamp in action on the tom-toms. I use a lot of times instead of the 1073, I use the 4-band version of the kit on toms. But we can do that same trick of getting the preamp gain right here. Okay. There was a cymbal, crash cymbal, real close to the toms, the floor tom. And so what I want to do is check, because this is going to have a natural form of compression, by just using that transformer just to round everything out. That's what it does by nature. Let's make sure we're not making that cymbal overwhelmingly obnoxious. Okay, so here they are back to back. Oops, sorry. It's there, but maybe it doesn't mean it's a problem. It doesn't mean a problem. Cymbals crash. That's what happens. So I don't fight a problem that's not there until I know it's a problem. Okay, so let's before and after with that saturation. Okay, with the transformer saturation. I do like them. I do like it. Okay, so let's go ahead and EQ with the... I'm not going to do any EQ on the Neve. I'm just going to use it for the flavor. So let's dial in some EQ. Okay, and the high pass filter is set to around 75 by default. That should be great. Let's do the floor tom now. Okay, we may have to go in and deal with the cymbal thing on this particular song. Let's hear these two toms together and just make sure that they belong like a cohesive set of drums. Yeah, let's hear a couple other spots just for fun. Man. Okay. Let's hear them in the overheads. Let's check the phase just to make sure. I know they were cut right, but again, plug in sometimes. Just one at a time. Let's do one at a time. I think I like that one. Neither one of them are exactly perfect. I know I can use something like that Drumratic software, but I really only use that if it's a problem, and that still sounds good to me. Gotta find a good tom hit. There we go. Again, I could go either way, which probably means there's no need in overthinking it. I want to hear the panning of the toms in the overheads by nature. Okay. They're not, it doesn't seem like we're getting a lot of width out of them. I like to pan the toms kind of cohesive with the overheads most of the time. It just seems like the foundation is more solid. So let's start around. We're going to keep it at full width. A lot of times, on overheads, I'm in a little bit because I want the room to be the widest element. But for this kind of a song, since there's just not that many instruments, we can go a little more hardcore. So let's try this. Yeah. All right, let's hear all of that together. Now let's check our drum processing. Okay, I'm good to live there for a few moments while we move on to some other things. Okay, it's a little mushy. Let's make this product right here active. That tape compression, kind of thing. Tighten it up. See if we can tighten it up a little bit with this. Got it set to 15 IPS. I like that. I absolutely hear that. A lot of times, for some reason, I just really like this on bass guitar. I used to work on one of these consoles a lot, and one thing I always found about it is sometimes there's something to me around 150 to 250 that I need to actually reduce a little bit on a bass guitar for it to find its pocket. And a lot of consoles, the low mid band doesn't go that low, and this one always did. Plus, it's just an incredible kit sounding console. Let's just see. Let's get a little presence out of it. I'm gonna put it in solo just to make it a little more clear exactly what we're adding. So here's the frequency. Makes the attacks jump out. Lets you hear the fingering, on the string a little more clearly defined. I know that's heavy-handed, but if it sounds good, who cares? Just ears over meters and knobs. Okay, let's see if adding a little below 100 is a good thing in the context of the song. Ready? All right, let's start there. Now, what I want to do is I want to take the bass guitar and copy it down here for a moment. We're not going to hear it yet, but I want it to be there. Now let's settle on some compression. I think a blue stripe would be great for this song because it's fast and it's harmonically rich. what I want to do is I'm going to use this track here for my presence. So you probably notice it's like, yeah, it sounds good. I mean, it sounds like a 1970s, bass funk song. But in the modern world, we need a little more cut, a little more bite than that. So I'm going to add some distortion with this guy. This is one of my tools that I use. Fast attack. See, here's slow attack. Okay, so there's plenty of attack coming through in the natural guitar part to me now, I think. So I'm going to really lock in the attack and only get the grit. So on the attack, we'll get grit, but not unnecessary volume changes, if that makes sense. So let's start there, and I'm going to dial in. I've changed my template since, but let's use this one. Why not? It's here. Now we're going to get some zing. Let's bring it up underneath the track. So that's going to help the guitar. Again, low track count, and the bass guitar, what he's playing, the movement he's playing is really foundational to the groove of the song. So we want that part. We don't just want low end fluff from the bass guitar. We're really looking for that old school, thing that started with like the Motown scene, where the bass guitar was a foundational part of the melodic and movement of the song as well, not just low frequency. And here we go. Okay, that's working for me. That sounds like funk, but it's got some nasty bite to it too. Okay, we got this scene change here where it's like a keyboard going through some kind of synth thing. Okay. Let's go ahead and put this same processor on it. Let's put, you know what? No, let's go with an SSL channel strip 2 on this guy. See what we need. Let's bring in a fast attack compressor. Let's see if the fast attack is the right call in the context of the song. Let's turn that down a little bit. Or if we need the jumpiness of the slower, because I'm really, really pile driving the top end here to get something out of it. Okay. All right, so what I want to do is I have this tool. It's from Plugin Alliance that is part of a template that I have. That track is not imported, so I think it'll just be faster to find it right here for you guys. I think I have a little preset saved. Yeah, synth bass 1. Let's see that. Before and after. Okay, now let's try bass 2. Okay, I got one more idea. I want to put for the scene change of that. I think I want some chorusing on there. So it's Universal Audio that makes a. I'm trying to think of what it's called here. Let me look under modulation and go to UAD, and I'll probably see it. Dimension D, and we're going to use the stereo version of it. Here, which sound we like best, which setting. Okay. All right. Now, before we get the snare drum and all that any bigger, let's just let's just kind of keep the big picture things in mind. Let's get the rhythm guitar part. Okay. There's not any excessive harshness in the top end. In fact, I would say it's a very mid-focused thing. So we may not need anything fancy like harmonic control with saturation, tape, multi-band like that. We may just go straight to the SSL and get something that bites through the track a little bit. Let's hear that in the track. Okay, the tom-toms are getting a little crispy. Where are they at right here? Let me turn them down just a little. Okay, the B3. A lot of times, you know, it's just the glue that holds everything together, and you're not really boosting upper mids to make it bite or anything like that. You're just kind of letting it be what it is. But in this case, the track is so open. Let's add a little bite. A little bit below the guitar. And I'll tell you about the 4KB. You see, you have to use sometimes extreme knob movement because it's not an aggressive sounding. It's got a grit, but the circuit itself, you have to really drive into it on the gain knob to get, you know, really audible results. And let's use some of that you know, that compressor that's based on the bus compressor. You know, it's like an early version of that. Let's use some of that. Of course, we'll have to make up some trim from the makeup gain. Just a soft 2-to-1 auto release. Yeah. Now let's see if there's any low mids that need cut out of the track, and let's just check that presence that we added. All right, let's add a little upper shine to it too. Wouldn't usually do that. You know, every song is different. Every genre is different. Okay. Okay, that sounded pretty good. Let's check the low end. Let's see how much of that we need. About right there. Back down the compression just a little. I may want it to be a little more percussive. Let's go to 200 milliseconds on the release. Okay, let's deal with the electric guitar solo here. Let's start off with just the 4KE for now. Let's do that. Probably somewhere in that range. Okay, I think I've got a plan here. So what I want to do is I'm going to follow that. Oh, is that is actually move that down. So let's cut that out of there. Make sure that don't change the sound. Yeah, definitely have a plan. All right, so what I want to do is I want to put the SSL transformer, if I can find that. Let's see, let's look through my thing here, my limiter is down there, my limiter. Okay, so here is the transformer, and we're going to use the high frequency shine. So I'm going to take that channel strip off real quick, and I'm just going to hear the difference in the transformer. It'll be minimal, but that guitar just needs some life. It needs some sparkle. See that? It just adds a subtle pep in the step, right? So that, you know, I mean, I know we're using it heavy, but I feel this guitar needs it. So my plan is to put this back in now, the 4KE. Now I'll probably have to use less high-end boost because we're getting a little extra pep in the step, right, from the transformer. Okay, now, last but not least, I'm going to drive all of that into a multi-band compression or compressor, and I'm going to see about that top band. Let's take it, yeah, probably around 1K as our crossover point, because then, you know, it'll be affecting everything. You know, by the time we get to the 3K range, it's going to be affecting it. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to, let's see where we're hitting the compressor on the stereo bus. Okay, now let's put this guy in. Okay, so what I want to do is I started with a 3 dB as part of my template, kind of for music like this at least, a 3 dB boost at 80. I'm going to split that in half, and because I feel like I need a little bit more of it here than downwind. Okay, I feel like I'm getting plenty of attack out of the kick drum. Okay, we're making subtle improvements, slowly but surely. Okay, so let's do this. Let's start bringing in some parallel treatment on the drums and see where we get. Okay, I'm going to start in a kind of the verse type of section. What that is, that's an 1176. Now, let's do this. Let's make a determination if tape machines across the drum bus, and there's little presets here, are going to make things better or worse. And if I use it on one of my drum returns, I've got 4 that I can use, which we're not going to use that room thing, so let's just delete it. We got plenty of room. We're getting plenty of high frequency EQ out of those overheads. You know, there's C12 models. Okay, I can tell that I'm going to take a little of the crispiness out of the toms as they are being struck. They just sound a little too... So we're not going to use any compression or anything on them because we don't want to enhance attack. Okay, we haven't dealt with the congas yet other than panning. Let's throw a little tape across it. We'll use luster. Yeah, here we go. Okay. It's just going to be a subtle lay-in, mostly using those verses. And what is this? Ah, tambourine. Okay. So generally what I use, something like a... use the wrong button there. Generally what I use is something like a fast attack compressor or limiter to really negate the difference between the spikes and the shake, because it, you know, within the track all you hear is the spike if you don't really reduce it. Yeah. Now let's get rid of a lot of top end. Let's see. Starting there. Okay. I'm going to back the compressor down just a little. So I want it to sound live. Okay, I feel like we're in a good spot to kind of start thinking about the big picture now. We've kind of micromanaged some things. So I definitely, as much as I like the real drums, I'm definitely feeling samples on this song. You know, I know that wasn't something that they had back in the day, in the era of the music that we're recreating, but maybe they would have used it if they had it. So I feel like we can get a better drum sound that not only hits us harder, but also because of the tightness of the kit and the volume of the cymbals versus the snare and everything, you know, what the gate is having to do. I'm hearing some pumping and things that I feel like we can cover by laying in samples and getting a little of our volume out of that versus just the spot mics. Okay, so the first thing I want to, you know what, let's start with the snare top. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to take the this mic right, or this thing right here, and I'm going to listen to the real snare drum because that's going to be really prominent in our overheads, and I think it's kind of fitting for this genre. So we're going to do something that works well with that. It's not about the sample itself. It's about how the sample works with what we've already, you know, have on tape, because that's going to be, this is going to be no more than probably like 30% of the sound, maybe 40% at the most. So, you know, it's really got to match what's coming out of the rest of the kit. Okay. And let's start listening to some of these that's built into my little template here. That could be cool. Okay, so I need to relax the trigger. Let's see. Okay. You always got to check the phase, which luckily with trigger, it's real easy to do. Keep relaxing that detail. Okay, that's the one that's fitting me. Tune it up just a little bit. Now let's hear that in the track. Wait, didn't we decide it needed to be, let's see. Yeah, that's more in phase, so let's check that. So here's what we had, which is great, but here's what we have now. Just tuning it up a little bit more to get that energy that Donovan had. Okay, let's hear what that sounds like in a bigger section. One of those dumb bum 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 sections right here. Here we go. Okay, let's print this. Let's just go ahead and commit it. Well, pow, let that render. All right, with that done, let's drop that down in one of our snare sample tracks that we already have ready to go. I'm just kind of take a peek at it here. I can see that, these samplers do a pretty good job. Sample replacement tools, rather. Okay, let's turn it down. What we can do, see, now that we have this on its own fader cleanly, if we wanted a little high frequency to, that energy of that highly pitched drum that he had, we can always do that on the trigger, and we're not enhancing the hi-hat bleed or any of that kind of stuff. We will hear what that sounds like going to the parallel compression, but those are my own drum samples that I made, with that drum pack that I made with Drum Sample Shop, and I've already got all that treatment built into it, so it's probably going to be too much. Maybe. Yeah, it's bringing up too much sustain because I'm getting so much room sustain in the overheads already. I'm going to try one thing. No, I'm not either. Let's see. I want to look at the way this laid this in here with a drum sample, and I'm going to see if... No. Well, let's just... Actually, yes. Let's do this. Oh, I got to go down into the... No. I like what I had better, the way it was kind of determining its own little bit of business. Okay, and the thing that I think I might want out of the kick drum for a sample, if I'm going to do it, would be a little low end something. Let's just check. Let's go. I've got a couple that I've saved. Let's bring in some thunder. Gets out of phase or something. Yeah. Man, maybe that's too much. Maybe it's too much thunder. You know what? Let's okay, before I print that, let's check a couple more. Let's check this. This is probably too much sustain for sure. Okay, let's hear this one more time. I think that one will win. Okay, so let's commit that bad boy. All right, so I'll remove that from the trigger. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one side of that. I don't want wide width kind of thing. So let's just delete that. So I'm going to take one side of it, and we're just going to make sure it's lined up. Yeah, it looks great. Pretty great. Let's just check it, though. Let's flip the phase on it, make sure it's wrong. Yeah, it hollows out all the middle. Now, what I want to do, I want to EQ the sample a little bit. Let's take a little, somewhere right there, and duck it just a little bit because of the way it's going to work with the other sample. So it's like just a little bit of a puzzle kind of thing. And I do want some attack. I want that real consistent plasticky attack. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's check that with the... Let's hear that together. Let's check how we're hitting everything. Okay, that is snare drum's poking out a little bit too much. Okay, let's check the snare fills right there and check and see how it's hitting that limiter. Okay, that's about where I would say, hey, tuck that back a little. Okay, remember, we still have our melodic element to put on top of that, so we're still going to get more volume. Let's use our stereo imager, get a little extra width. To show you what it does. I'm not afraid of stereo wideners. I know some people are, because some of the early ones were bad. They just were. They really messed with the phasing. But used subtly, I think they're great, and I think mixes with them are going to 9 times out of 10 going to sound better. And you know, that's what we're trying to achieve. So no fear. Okay, we're going to turn that B3 down a bit. You know, at this stage, it's a work in progress. You're constantly tugging and pulling, you know, just to make sure everything is great. I do have, you can't see it, but there's a meter in front of me that I generally keep on an iPad here that kind of tells me. See, we're in a great spot. This is our analog VU right here, and our melodic loudest element is not on top of it yet. And we're just running right in here. So we put that on there. We're going to be up in here in just a perfect console spot. Okay, now I'm going to add the Oxford inflator from Sonox. And it's just, I don't really know what it is. I know it's been out for a long time, but I love it. I just love what it does on aggressive music. So let's see how much of it we can get by with here before it becomes obnoxious. Okay, I guess hopefully you can hear what it's doing to the impact of the drums. It's making them just seem more important. Here's without it. Okay, as I feel like, you know, the drums are getting just a little out of control. I'm going to turn down the kick and the snare just a little bit. Still feel like there's a little bit of a nasally thing in that one electric guitar that I'm not loving. So we're probably going to do a cut somewhere. Or you know, a really cool modern tool for this kind of thing is Soothe. Let's take Soothe. Instead of doing a permanent cut at all times with an EQ, let's do this. Let's put this band right here in listen mode. I bet that's probably around where it is. So let's make that to where it cuts to up to about 6 dB. Let's put that in and check it out. It does take a little energy away from it, but maybe we just turn it up louder as a result. Okay, so let's cut that back to around 4 dB. You know what? Let's try this transformer on this guitar too, and just see if it makes it a little more lifey. All right, I think it's come a long way. Okay, so these guys are not professional studio musicians. They're a great band, um, but those of you that have followed me and watched some other videos, sometimes I have these Nashville guys that come in and the tones are just you kind of just push up the faders and it just it's pretty magical how easy it can be. These guys are amazing musicians, but they're not professional they're not recording every day, and so the tones take a little more work. If you've watched some of my other videos, you probably noticed this. It's like this is coming down together, but it's taking longer, and that's okay. You fight the fight. You have to fight until you win, and we're gonna win by God when we're done. This thing is gonna sound great. So what we're gonna do next is we're going to start putting in the brass, adding some effects, although I feel like this is going to be a fairly dry mix. But, as I was showing you guys where we're hitting these compressors, the stereo bus compressor, what was it? I showed you. Oh yeah, the stereo bus at the end of the chain is in a perfect spot to add something melodic, leady in there and push us just over the top into some nice saturation. Very happy with where we're standing technically in a lot of ways. We're just going to keep working until we make it better and better and better. Okay, so we stopped camera and made some coffee. It's very important that you have coffee and chocolate, as you guys know. And this coffee was brought to us by Empirical Labs, maker of the Distressor. Here's to you, Empirical Labs. Yeah, all right, very good. Okay, so I think we're, slowly grinding away at it and getting more and more polish out of it, a little bit more, favorable sounding all the time. While the camera was stopped, I went in and I'm going to show you something. I didn't want to do this on camera to waste your time. But what I do is I go in hit by hit on the snare drum, because even using something like Slate Trigger, which is the best in the game, or one of the best in the game, things don't always line up. Certain hits will flam or be out of phase. So I tab the transient like that and just check every one of them so I know that they're right. And I did that. And another thing that I do sometimes is I'll separate like that, and I'll pitch shift or move the dynamics up and down with clip gain, to make it sound more realistic and less like a sample. However, we're using primarily, overwhelmingly, it's the real snare, and we're just getting some of the supplement of the tone and the sustain out of the sample to where you still very much hear the real drum enough to where you hear the pitch shift on the hits. I'll show you. I mean, you da 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 da. You hear the left right thing. So there's no need. Again, I don't go looking for problems. I'm not going to fix something that's not an issue. But one thing that we may have to fix is some, and this is uncommon for me, is some of the cymbal bleed. In the toms. One way of doing that, you can. I may have some clean tom hits here and there that I record. I may have even recorded a tom sample session that was months ago, and I don't really remember. So probably what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in right here. Let's bring that down because we're not really looking for that, but we are looking for this. And let's take that down to, gosh, I don't know. We're really just looking for the sustain of the drum, something like this. That's maybe a little too much. Let's see. Whoop. We're just looking for the sustain of the cymbal to be, not as harsh. Let's go, let's keep it as natural as we can. Let's go back up to somewhere around in there. Okay. Okay. Let's see how that sounds in the mix. Maybe a lot better. So that may be worth us taking our time to do. I don't like, again, only fix the problems that are our problems, but it just seems to be enough of an issue. And what I will do, I'll tell you that I'm going to do a duplicate edit, because I want to be able to get back to the other one if I feel like I went too far. It's mostly the floor tom. Unfortunately, at the end of most tom fills, what happens? They hit us. You hit a cymbal, so you have to do this quite a few times. So let's tab to transient for that one. Okay. Cool. Sounds so much better. The cymbals just aren't, killing us like they have been. So I'll be able to rely on the head. Sometimes you find yourself, if you don't do something like this, it's to the detriment of the cymbals, because you end up turning them down to compensate for the leakage, and then they're not powerful and they don't speak in the areas where they really do need to speak for the intensity of the song. So I know this is time consuming, but we're trying to make something great. All right, so I'm going to consolidate that now. So I have a new edit, and on my edit track here, I'm just going to go back to the original, so I can, in case I change my mind that this is too stifling or something, I can get back to my original chopped up tom. Okay, so now we're in pretty good shape to start thinking about effects or adding our melodic piece on top. I'm considering effects first. So one of the few things that I do want to use some reverb on is the congas. Something short, like that, short and tight. What we're going to do on our compressor, let's adjust the attack to be just a tiny bit slower. Yeah, now we're getting the effect of the congas more that way, because in this kind of music, that's a cool thing. Let's check. Make sure I don't have the other percussion track stifled too much. I do have a tendency to, that harsh top end and the transients. Nah, that's good. All right, so let's address the reverb on the congas real quick. All right, that's good. The snare drum, I don't think I want any reverb whatsoever. I just hear so much natural reverb in the room and the overheads, and that's with no room mics being used whatsoever. But let's check the tom-tom. Those, I do feel like, let's try the same short, tight reverb that we have on the conga. Let's try that in the mix. See what that sounds like. Yeah, maybe a little less, but that's the idea. Let's go up somewhere where they're really heavy. Okay, now we may have to do something there too because the cymbal is just being played so loudly. The snare drum, you know. So okay, so in this section, I'm gonna have to take a real snare hit from somewhere clean. That one. Okay, so I'm gonna have to tab that guy. This is unusual to have to do this much work, but again, whatever it takes to get the product out the door properly. So I'm going to take time to do this. And here's what I would do in a situation like this, guys, is do this kind of a thing and then just cut that out. And this is already an edited snare track. So as long as I'm out by there, it's going to work. So let's just do a before and after real quick so you guys can see it. And then I'll cut away and we'll edit this and then come back because this is going to be like making sausage too. How much better that is now. It'll be nice and tight and clean, and we'll be able to get the snare drum sounding great that way. In fact, you can see, I don't know if I laid it, we'll just move that sample a little bit to be more in perfect phase with it. Okay. Those three. So, okay, so let's, you know what, rather than cut away, let's do this one with you all, with all of us in the same room because we're having a blast. And let's do that. And let's do, tab to transient, get a little bit on this side of it. Do that. We'll carry that hit out as long as it'll go cleanly. Okay, and let's do the same thing here. So you remember how obnoxious that crash cymbal was in the snare drum mic. And I don't want this to sound like a machine gun. I don't want the sample to be overly dominant compared to the real drum. So it's worth this time. But now listen. Hear the difference. You know, it's just night and day. So I think it's worth our time to clean that up a little bit. In fact, we'll do that. Okay, so, and one thing, when we get the horns on top, you know, or you get the lead vocal on top, that masks some of this stuff. But I just like to make sure it's right. If it's this big of a problem in this mode of the mix, I just want to correct it. Rather than lose sleep over it, because I'm the kind of personality that would. If I don't do my best, I hate me. It's just a little Joe fact. All right, here we go. Oops, wrong track. Okay. Okay, so these three hits right here, and we should be pretty close to being done with this kind of a process. Because I think it was just on this one part of the song where they did that kind of a thing where he was crashing and playing the snare at the same time. And you just hear it's just an abnormal dynamic. It's unusual that the crash cymbal would be this much louder than the snare drum. But, you know, it was. And we'll do what we have to do. Okay. Okay, I'm going to keep that consolidated. Okay, and I can always get back to the original because I have the original underneath that, so it's easy to get back. Okay, and I also made an edit on that snare track or snare sample, so I'm gonna delete all unused. And I always have this stuff. I always have it backed up on another session before I start mixing and doing all this changing and editing and deleting, so I can always get back. All right. So anyway, that said. Where were we to? We were to the, I believe we were to the organ and the guitar as far as adding any effects. Okay, it needs a little space on it, but it can't be much. It can't be much because there's so much sustain. It's such a busy part. That's a slap. Here's probably a 16th. I kind of like that. Now let's add a little bit of ambience. Let's put some room on this guy. Okay, now let's check out the solo guitar. Okay, I think even though there's a lot of notes close together, I think we will definitely benefit from some delay. Let's see what an eighth note would be like. Kind of like that. Let's try a plate reverb. Okay, so I'm getting a little too much sub bass. That kick, that sample. I'm gonna cut it about 60 cycles. I'm gonna cut it a couple dB. Still got plenty of bottom end. I think I want to grunge that B3 up. I think I want to grunge it up. Let's check it. Let's hear those stab hit parts. Okay, I don't think it's that one. I don't think that's the right tool. I think it's this. Let's check this out. Instead of preamp crunch, I think it's a different type of distortion characteristic I want. Let's go to this guy, and we don't need that module. We may need that one, but let's go to this one and put something like this in there. Let's try it on the Mu D. Okay, before and after. Okay, so I'm hearing a little breakup. Oh, I still got the pre on. Okay. Oh, that was just in the speaker cabinet. Okay, so see, it's just a little more grit, and I think in the mix it's going to be more interesting. Yeah. All right, man. Let's start adding the brass in, because remember, the brass is the star. They're the ones carrying the melody. They're the vocalist in this instance. Let's get up to a spot where they're somewhere like there. Okay, what we're gonna do is I haven't shown it yet, but I have a parallel compression track. I have multiple. I have one on the drums going, and right now we are using it on the snare drum only. I think that's the only thing that needs it. I think if we bring it on the toms or anything else, the sustain that we're going to bring up is going to show the dynamic, because of the dynamics on the drum kit that's being played. I think we're going to bring up more unpleasantness than we are tight sustain. So let's don't use it any more than that. Now, I have one that is meant for the other rhythm section elements, guitars, pianos, keyboards, brass, whatever the case may be. And I've not used it to this point. I don't want to use it to this point. I haven't felt I needed it, and I don't want it on anything except maybe the brass. So I'm going to bring that up to the brass return here. So just know that is going to be a thing that's added. Now let's start dissecting these one at a time, sound-wise. Okay, let's try, based on what I'm hearing, let's try something like a 3/8. These were cut with no compression whatsoever. I don't like to cut brass with compression or EQ. Okay, is that about the loudest? Okay, now let's go to right here on this track. Here's this saxophone. Okay, let's see what we need there. Just a touch, okay. Let's see if a 3/8 is fast enough on the trumpet. You know what? We may want to bring up an 1176. Let's try that. Ooh. I don't want very much. Just a little bit of reining each one of them in before they meet as a group. Now, I normally wouldn't do this on a lot of jazz, big band, and stuff. Only compress the group as a whole. But on this, they need to be close sounding to us instead of like back in the room. And so this is what it's going to take to accomplish that. So it's just a little bit. I'm only looking for 2 to 3 dB, but more important than even the amount is the attack characteristic. Let's get back here. May not be as much needed on trumpet 2 because it's a see, it's a darker sound, lower register. It's not quite as attacky and punchy. Okay, so Okay, so let's think about using no EQ on those, waiting till we get to the group master. But these guys are going to need a little bit. Let's been using mostly SSL, but let's just use some real invisible, transparent digital EQ here. Let's try that. And let's, you know what, I'm going to do it before compression. I was thinking I didn't want it that way, but now that I hear it, I think I do. Okay, and what we want to do is also, right there. Remember, we've already high passed these guys up to like 90 or 100. Okay, that's the higher pitched horn of the two. Let's drag that down to here. Let's do the same thing. We'll probably end up using less of this. Let's see what this guy's doing. Okay, let's hear him as a group. Okay, that sounded pretty good as a group. So what I want to do is I'm going to put a little tape compression on. I'm trying to think of which one I want. Let's start with Phoenix because it's kind of a what do you mean inactive? That's because it's the old M1 version. Okay, so let's do it here. That may be about right. So that's just going to be a touch of saturation and compression, and it's also adding some top end. So by using Sapphire on this, it's like adding tape machine bias. You could make a tape machine a little enhance the high frequencies or enhance the low frequencies or keep it neutral. This is like I'm enhancing the high frequencies just a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to feed that group into a parallel. I'm sorry, into a multiband compressor. What I want to do is I'm going to bring up my level as a group. Okay. A little more control on the top. Okay. Now let's start before we, I micromanaged it a little bit. So now let's start hearing that as a group. Okay, so let's make it a lot brighter. Now, we're going to get some makeup volume here by parallel compressing them right here to squisher number 2. So let's turn that off and let's see what I'm getting. So I'm getting more level to put this on top, of the band. But I'm also getting a pretty highly compressed signal that I can tuck up underneath the little bit more lively original. We want to make sure we don't go too far, like I can always slow this down or even just take it out of line. I can tell that the high frequency boosts that I'm doing on the saxophones is a bit much in comparison to the trumpets. And we do have this other third trumpet that I've been missing. He comes in only at the last. Oh, it's the real high. Let's don't put any compression or anything on him. Let's just let him just go. Yeah, cool. Okay, I am missing a little brightness from the trumpets. So let's add just a touch of air. Maybe just a couple dB right there. And let's do this on both of them, and we'll determine whether or not it needs to be post or pre-compression. Okay. Let's bring them into a Fairchild, because a Fairchild is gonna give them some tube, some harmonics that equal cut, presence, whatever you want to call it, even without compression. Okay, here's what I'm deciding. It's kind of last minute, is that I'm going to do, let's see, I am going to bring in a separate bus for the brass. Okay, so I'm going to go to my template here, and I'm going to bring in the one that's labeled keys. Just means it's for sustaining things. Where's it at here? Bam. Okay, so right now the guitars and the B3 will be the only thing that's hitting the guitar. We'll just call it master B. And then this is going to be back here, and this is going to be the brass return. Okay, we want to make sure, that compressor's out. We just want the saturation, and we can get a little group EQ here if we want it. So let's make sure that everything is routed properly. Keys, and let's route this to keys as well. Okay. Let's see if we can get a little extra shine on the brass group. Still don't think it's shiny enough for this genre. Am I using this in mid-side mode? I am. Let's turn it out of mid-side, and let's factory default. Okay. Put the auto listen in. Right about there. And let's take a little, there's a little something in the low end that I want to get out, in the low mids. Right there. Let's hear that in the mix. Yeah, that's getting a lot better, You polish until you get the shine that you want, right? Okay, so now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add some ambience. Yes, I can use it on sends, of course. But rather than do that, I'm going to put a little on the whole group to kind of simulate them being in a space, right? Because I want to bring in the room mics themselves. I already kind of remember from the day that I recorded it and other days when I pulled this open to check it, that they're just they're massive, and that's just not what that kind of thickness and distance isn't what we want on this kind of in-your-face tune. Let's see what that sounds like in the blend. Okay. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a little, it's already there, a little slap delay. So I've got a slap that's like 15 ips. Let's check that out. Let's hear it on the punchy section. That's where we're really going to know. Okay, now here is the 16th. I think I like the 16th. Okay, now I want to bring in the brighter plate reverb, and I may back this, artificial room down and just use the plate, or a combination of the two. Something about the way a plate in your face brass song. Something about the way a plate sizzles. The sizzle in the air. That's what we're used to from way back in the 70s, 80s. It's just ingrained in our brain that sounds right on brass. So what we would run into, and we're not to that point yet, is lots of automation to make the brass set. We're going to, balance trumpet 1 versus sax 1 and things like that a lot. Or it says sax 2, but that's the high part. That's the melodic part. All right, now I want to show you one last little trick. So, and this is not so much a trick, but something like, let's bring in the SS. You know what? No, the SSL is my favorite generally, but I want to bring in something that I know most all of you have. Everybody's got the L1. It's been around forever. So I'm gonna trim off some of the spikes at the end of here before it gets to the bus. Finally starting to sound like a record, gang. All right, so let's see. Check it on the NS10s at this point. All right, so the bottom end under 100 cycles was just a little full and just kind of there. So you see, I turned that the drum and bass group down 1 dB, and I really felt it made a big difference. I hope you heard that when it was happening. I think we need, okay, so for this type of a song, I think we need more articulation out of the hi-hat. You know what I want to do? I want to take that that little bit of low end boost that I had on the bass off. It's just too thick and full down there. All right, so I'm going to get rid of some tracks that I did not use because I don't want to see these faders here, and use them. And you know, I really don't think we're getting anything useful out of this kick out at this point either. Um, just more low end, you know, that we don't want. Yeah, that tightened up the low end of the kick drum right there. It sounds 10 times better already. All right, perfect. So the next thing would be what I do is I know everything's hitting in a sweet spot, and you know the rough mix is kind of sounding good. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to put a breakpoint at the beginning of all of the tracks. Put our drum groups on, and we're going to get that error that tells us there's some tracks that we have removed, which yes we know. And I don't think I need this. We're going to make it inactive and hide it. Room one, bye bye. We just it's plenty roomy already. Just the bass, you know, the sound of that room down in Austin, it is just so roomy and so ambient. And do I not have a bass group yet? I do not. So I want to create a group for these two basses to where when I move one, the other one moves, unless I really want intentionally to make a change between the buzz, we'll call it the buzz presence track, and the body, the track. And we know we're not going to need the low end of the ribbon mic for this song. So we're going to make it inactive and we're going to hide it. Same thing with the lead here, inactive and hide. We don't want to waste screen space with things that we're not even going to put in the mix. Do I have a B3 group? I do. So now I can do the same thing with my brass, which it looks like I have brass groups. I'm going to turn those off because I do not want to deal with groups at this point on brass. If I want to adjust trumpet 2, I want to adjust it. I don't want it to move sax 2 at the same time. And we know at this point now that the roominess of the brass mics is not going to make the mix. So we're going to go inactive. We're going to hide each one of those guys. There may be a keyboard shortcut to do all of that at one stroke. I think there is. I think it's just right up in here. But now, see, our session is much tidier. We got rid of things that we know we're not going to use. And what we can do now is start automation. But I know that that's a long, tedious process. So what I think I might do here is just a little bit of that and kind of show you what it would consist of, and let you guys take that information, process it, and let you go enjoy the rest of your day or evening with your family, and not have to sit around through 2 hours of me fine tuning how loud the harmony part of saxophone 2 is versus the harmony that trumpet 2 is making, because that's what it takes. So to make the record great, is to just dig in and do that kind of stuff. But generally at this point, I turn it to the NS10s, and I'll turn the lead instrument, which in this case is the brass, off. Generally it's a vocal, but I'll turn that off and just focus on just the rhythm section. So I'll make a pass, and sometimes I use faders, and other times I use breakpoints, because it's just so much quicker to say, okay, in this verse, for example, I want this guitar right here. I just want it down. Bam, it's done. There's no, okay, well, let's ride it throughout the, that 45 seconds and then let go of it. I'll use the fader where necessary, especially on lead vocals. But for this kind of stuff, a lot of times I use the mouse. And let's just kind of give you an example, okay? So to get the articulation that we wanted on the hi-hat for the more tight, crisp spots, in spots like this where it's open and he's plowing it, we're just going to have to turn down. Okay, so right there, as the toms fill in, I want a little more energy into it. And I can already tell you, and yes, this is the kind of level of detail that I work at, is so I want to, right here, that one snare or kick drum hit is significantly louder than the others around it, and I hear that change of impact, and I don't like it. So what I want to do is I'm going to make sure we have it exactly right in the phase polarity category, and I'm going to do this. All right. Actually, doesn't really even need to go that far. Just this kind of thing. Okay, let's do this right here. I'm going to undo my groups, and on the bass, I'm going to take the buzz track down just a little bit, so it's not as obvious in our face that there's distortion being added to cause aggression and volume. And right there, see, we can get that crispiness in the hi-hat turned back up. he hangs. There's just a little something in that note. What I want to do is I'm going to take the kick drum, and on these A sections, right, these sections, I'm going to turn it down just a little bit so we have more energy. Let's see. So we have more energy in those sections, or less energy. So when he gets playing busier, it seems to be more important. More energy. Any little thing we can do like that to create momentum and shifts to where, okay, we're a little more subdued at this section, so we'll turn it down. And a little more, maybe, than the arrangement or the musician actually played it that way. And so as our compression and all these things are coming together to create this tightness, a lot of times we lose a little of the dynamic that it was naturally played at or intended to be played at. And so we can build it back, using volume automation, but still get the benefits of all the compression that we've laid in there. Okay, now that's plenty far enough into the song. What I want to do now is I want to switch over to the brass, and we're going to, kind of automate that for this segment. And I think that's going to be plenty for you guys to chew on for a little while. Okay, so let's do this. So that saxophone is really loud compared to everything else. So what I want to do is I'm going to turn the saxophones off. I'm going to get the trumpets happening. This guy's melody. Let's bring the saxophones in. This is the low guy. Okay, high saxophone part. That's some pretty loud moments. Let's kind of just double check for the sake of fun. Okay, we're knocking back a little bit there on those. Yeah, so we're getting some compression on those spikes. I'm gonna turn that up a little bit more, and I'm gonna turn it to the fastest. And what I want to do is I'm going to put that compressor after the EQ. Okay, great. Now let's just turn the whole group down just a little bit. Place them back in the track, just a touch. Except the entrance, we're going to leave that where it was. getting better and better. Okay, let's figure out our... Okay, so we need to turn the trumpet up and the sax down a little bit. Because one is harmony, one's melody. Okay, now let's scrutinize these guys. I kind of like that balance. This one, I couldn't hear the saxophone right there. Let's just dissect it. See what all's going on to create this chord. So trumpet 1 and 2 are playing the same part, I believe. Yeah. Okay, and trumpet, the high sax. Okay, so he's playing the same note, the same melody line. Okay, got it. Once again, they're all returning in unison. We got 3 people playing the same part. Okay. Okay, one more thing to check. Okay, that's the one playing the high. Okay, of course he is. They're all 3 on the same note again, the same part. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to make sure I have, it's the reason I'm taking time to do this is I want to make sure you hear both trumpets. You can see one's played more aggressively, but they're playing the same note. So I want to make sure you hear both of them. Okay, now let's put that part in the track and kind of get our head wrapped around it. Make sure we're the melody and the harmony are correct. That's a little hot. So we're going back to the same thing. So we're going to just copy that program. Oops, get my loop turned on. Okay, now let's figure these parts out. Okay. Sax. Okay. Just one. I mean, I guess that's the melody, but still is a little too hot. what's going to make that sound fuller? Maybe just a little bit more of both saxophones, actually. Okay, so that's the type of, again, I'm not going to do the whole song because this is going to get long and tedious, but that's the kind of idea. And then I'm going to go back at a low volume on the NS10s, and after this, I got the brass feeling good, maybe make some little adjustments from section to section like that. Then I'm going to listen to the band and see if there's anything in the band that needs to pop up between some of these hits. You know what I mean? Like right in here, in between these stabs. Is there any ghost notes on the snare drum I need to pull up? Anything like that, just to keep the energy and the motion going. And last but not least, after I get that done, and I think everything is great, and I'm still hearing things in the drums. Where I need to go back and clean up some individual hits where I'm hearing some, maybe some, I'm not sure what I'm hearing, but I know I need to check some individual hits, and I will. But what I'm going to do, and I probably need to use a something right here on the ceiling, turn that down so I'm not clipping Pro Tools. But what I would do before I send it to the capture device over here, I don't want to clip it. So I'm going to turn on something like this. I'm never going to mix through it, but before I send it to the client, I'm going to do this kind of a thing. So let's just do this section of the song, these stabs that we just automated. Ready? Here we go. Just to make it loud for the client. Now, I have no idea if that's right, because what I would typically do is have that turned to 0.03 and gain it up to where I see where my RMS is around -8 lufs or something like that. So I know it's loud and impactful, but not overly squashed for the client to hear. And I'm going to send it to him with that on. All right, guys, you know what? I think that would be a good place to close this up, because what's left is really tedious stuff. And I could use a little break anyway. So that's what we're going to do. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Saw some neat little tips or tricks that you can steal for your own use. But we are going to start doing more and more of these kind of events, and we're going to spread them out across different genres, different styles. And what you'll see is the amount of effort that it takes me to get to the finish line is different every day. There's days where I can literally within 2 hours, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is sounding like $1 million, and it feels like I haven't done a whole lot. Everything just comes together. And then there's other days where, whether it's the way it was recorded, the musicianship, the arrangement itself, various things are fighting at me, and it takes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours per song to get it out the door. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. It's got to be great. Once it hits Apple and Spotify, it's just got to be great, no exceptions, because it's your and mine reputation on the line. So hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. And like I said, we'll be doing more of these. So watch the social media pages on Instagram and Facebook, and we'll try to do announcements. And I'd like to do them every month, to be real honest. So it could be a lot of fun. And maybe some of them we'll do live, so we have some interactive question and answering happening. So anyway, thanks again, and happy mixing.